welcome to the Global Nashville program. I'm Patrick Ryan, President of the Tennessee World Affairs Council. This evening we have something a little different. Our regular host for Global Nashville, former Mayor Karl Dean, is away, so we've asked Ralph Schulz, President of the Nashville Chamber of Commerce, to guest host the program. And he has asked Butch Spyridon, the President of the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation, as his guest. Ralph, Butch, thanks for being with us tonight.
Well, Patrick, always a pleasure to be here, and always enjoy seeing Karl. So I'll miss seeing Karl, but we have a great guest in Butch, I think.
And I'm picturing Karl when I look at you, Ralph.
Well, I'm flattered. I don't know how Karl would feel. So, well, we're excited to be here to talk about what I consider to be one of the most important organizations in Nashville, because it brands Nashville on a global basis.
Glad to have both of you here. Ralph, before I turn things over to you, let me mention to our audience that biographies for both you and Butch are on our website, and for the archive version in our program notes. But let me just say that both of these gentlemen, their rich professional experiences have prepared them well to head two organizations that are key to both the expansion of our community prosperity and the success in making Nashville a global brand. So Ralph, over to you, and we look forward to our conversation tonight.
All right, well, great. So Butch, let's start off. Has Nashville always been a international destination?
Absolutely not. We dabbled in it, over the years. I'd say we made a little bit of a run in the 90s, but we really didn't hit our stride till the last 7 to 10 years, and took a lot of work and a lot of start and stops.
So what do you think? What's the attraction to international visitors to Nashville?
Well, the obvious answer is music. And maybe gave us the credibility for a bit of a jump start, or maybe leap faster than
Ralph, I think Butch mentioned he might be having some power Wi-Fi issues there. So until he comes back, I'll join the screen here with you, and maybe you and I can talk a little bit about some of the things that might be on your mind in terms of what's happening in the city in the global capacity. And you were on with Karl. I guess it's been about 6 months now, so that's light years in terms of what's been going on. What's on your mind that you'd like to share from the chamber perspective as we look at, we thought we were coming out of the pandemic. Everybody got optimistic, started going to brunch and buying tickets to the sounds and everything else. And here we are staring another wave in the face, and we're all uncertain as to what's ahead. How does that factor in to the starts and stops from your perspective on the chamber's work?
Well, I think people are eager to be back in business. People are eager to be back at full speed, but the Delta variant has definitely created some more caution in various spaces. I think from an economic recovery perspective, we were right on target. We had forecast a return of the economy in Nashville in the second quarter of 21, and it happened. I think when we have Butch back, we'll talk a little bit about the fact that in a lot of ways, the hospitality sector, which we expected to lag behind the rest of the economy, has actually come back faster than we expected. If you talk to Doug Crulin out at the airport, he'll tell you that about 85% of their departures are leisure travelers. Usually the mix is about 60-40 business leisure, but right now about 85% leisure. And that hospitality sector is coming back a little bit quicker than we expected. But I don't think there's any question that people have gotten a little more cautious with this variant and the transmissibility of the virus. We're still looking at businesses making adjustments on remote work. We're still seeing businesses making adjustments on when they'll return to full operation in place. But by and large, the businesses of Nashville are just moving on with doing their business.
Yeah, if you follow the business papers, Nashville is still high ranked there, both in attracting the tech sector, and seems a lot of people are moving out of California for some reason, and Nashville is high on the list of people grabbing some of those. When you were last here with Karl, I think the 800-pound gorilla in the room, the name that could not be mentioned, perhaps might have been the Oracle announcement that came shortly after that. So we're seeing some fantastic growth, and how does that factor into what we should be looking forward to in coming years? Is there a endless supply, or is this a surge that we can see tapering off at some point?
Well, I'm going to kind of give you the reverse sequence here of what creates that expansion of opportunity. Jobs obviously creates expanded opportunity for the people in this region, but the availability of workforce is what's driving that job creation. And quality of life drives the availability of workforce. So, as we talk with Butch about things like hospitality, entertainment, tourism, those cultural experiences that are represented in Nashville are really key to the quality of life for the people that are here, as well as the people that are visiting. So, Butch, great to have you back.
It's good to be back. Thanks for having me back so quick.
Yeah, two appearances.
My apologies.
Over to y'all.
Power, and then I lost Wi-Fi, and I don't know what's going on. I'm blaming Ida. So
yeah, I think there have been spot power outages all day in various places. So we were talking a little bit about what makes Nashville attractive to an international traveler. Is it easy for an international traveler to experience Nashville in its fullest?
Yeah, I think that's one of the strengths. We're easy to consume, and we always talk about our people, but we're such a friendly community that it almost works in reverse. We're so quick to say, "Can I help you?" Get in your face, that internationals will quickly back off, like, "What do you want?" And when they realize we don't want anything except to be nice, then they embrace it. But it's a bit startling for a lot of them. But I think it's one of our assets, that our creative culture, our music brand, and our authenticity all wrapped into this Southern hospitality that is truly unique. It works for us, and we're not going to let it go.
So when you hear commentary from people who have visited here and then moved here, okay, because we see that a lot.
Yeah.
We see businesses that will have a business meeting here, or they'll experience a convention here, and the next thing we know, we're getting inquiries from businesses and people that want to move to this area. How important do you think that visitation to Nashville is to the general economic position of Nashville?
It's like somebody paying us to advertise our city. It works. And I've always seen that since I first started in this business. What you just said, as people discover places, they either think about opening an expansion, relocating a headquarters, just moving for retirement, moving for lifestyle. It works to our advantage. And I've always thought what the chamber does and what we do, we're inextricably tied to each other, because in reverse, some company that looks here to either move or does move, and then they go, maybe we should have our convention, our annual meeting in Nashville as well. So we feed off of each other, and those people that are looking at us, they can't get enough of this city. You know, I'd like to be able to bottle it and sell it, but it's that thing, you know. Nashville has that thing that people can't explain, and it works.
Yeah, there's a real vibe. We often say with our economic development prospects that if we can get them to Nashville, then we've got them in our clutches.
Uh,
Visiting here.
Totally agree that when people, the perception that exists from somebody that's never been here versus the perception once they have been, it's not even 180 degrees. I don't know how you can get further apart, but it's further. And it's our secret sauce. We get them here, 9 out of 10 times we'll close the sale.
So let's talk for a second about events and how important they might be as well. We've just come off a Grand Prix. We've had the NFL draft. We've had any number of events, women's Final Four, et cetera. How important are they to projecting Nashville into the global community? And then how important are they to have people respond back to that? You know, people calling and saying, want to be there.
Well, events have always been a key part of our strategy. You know, when we kind of looked up and you were involved, we don't have a theme park, we don't have a beach, we don't have mountains, we don't have huge business travel. You know, I always hear the experts tell me what we don't have. So we started using events to get people's attention. And CMA Music Fest was one of the first, and it's televised globally. That's the real value to it. And people do come from all over the world. The Grand Prix was televised internationally. When we host some of the soccer matches we've hosted, and this weekend, US and Canada will be here, and that game will be carried in Canada and in Mexico. It's free marketing, it's free advertising. The draft went to 28 countries. You know, the NFL could not have done us a better favor than, say, put the shield on Nashville skyline and then send it out across the world. And people always see us having fun. And I think people marvel at that because they apparently don't have fun in their own towns, but they just see us as this, everybody's happy, everybody likes each other, and everybody's having fun. And at the end of the day, you want to do business with people you like. You want to go to places where you think you'll enjoy yourself.
So when these events happen, and I'm really curious about this, but you have the Grand Prix, you have the World Cup soccer, and the international soccer events. You have the fireworks on the 4th of July and the fireworks at New Year's. Do we see a lot of visitors in town for those events, or are they mainly opportunities to promote the vibe of Nashville?
They're both. So this past July 4th, I know we sold 1,000 more room nights than we did in 2019. So we want to put heads here, butts in beds. Then we want to make sure that it's being promoted globally, and we did stream it internationally. And we always survey the audience. And I never cease to be amazed. It's Australia, it's France, it's Canada, it's obviously UK and Germany we do real well out of. But, and I don't know how they find out about it other than social media has been a great friend to us. But I know I've had Australians and UK clients or people we work peers come in for New Year's Eve, and they're blown away that we could produce an event like that, the quality of the talent, the safety of the crowd, and just the enjoyment of the experience. So the word is spreading, and you always got to give. For us, we got to give people a reason to decide to come and pick a date. So that's part of that whole event strategy. Come here. When we talked to the Grand Prix, you know, first thing we said was early August. You know, we didn't give them a lot of windows. We don't need help in June. We don't need help around July 4th. You know, so August needs help. So we'll help you if you help us. And so that strategy works in filling holes. That strategy works in free PR. And that strategy works in driving revenue for the city and the state.
So the hospitality sector, number 2 sector in Nashville, as an economic engine. How important was the Grand Prix, especially, following up now on the COVID shutdown period, the fact that the CMA Music Festival wasn't able to be held this year? Does that timing make a difference for us in the hospitality sector?
Huge difference, especially to your point this year. We were looking for any and every opportunity to have an event that had some kind of television component with it. And the television component was important to tell the world that we're open, that we have activities going on. And obviously the economic activities was exactly that. We needed to stimulate hotel sales, restaurant sales, and general spending in the community, which we had been without for a year and a half. And maybe to further emphasize your point, we had TV, and it wasn't international with the SEC tournament. We had ACM Awards televised, and it did have international. Then we have a CMA special coming up, July 4th, had a ton of international TV exposure, and then the Grand Prix. So when you're filling hotel rooms, which is what my job really is, and you're generating international PR at the same time, it doesn't get any better than that for us, because we always strive to be able to do both. We're really happy if we do one or the other, but both is a home run.
So when you think about international travel to Nashville and international travel out of Nashville, obviously we're looking at flights to and from Nashville to international destinations. We're looking at an airport that's under construction. Talk a little bit about the role of the airport and the role of flights to creating this global presence.
Well, without a world-class airport and without the service that goes with it, we don't have a shot. So, Chamber has a great relationship with the airport. We do. We're always talking to them about adding more flights, and they're always talking to us about bringing more people, and I can add more flights. So it's a chicken and egg that works both ways, literally. But we're partners, and we work together on the British Air recruitment. We're in conversations now with another major carrier to start service, and we learned, actually over the 4th, an airline came in for the 4th, blown away, left with saying, let's reignite our international conversation. And then at the same time, they said, you all have no idea how close you were to a second European flight just prior to COVID. Like, we were weeks away from that. Let's do this. And then COVID shut us down, and we'll lose at least 2 years in that battle. So we've created the interest. We have demonstrated demand. We have demonstrated that the market from an origin standpoint plays way bigger than any of the airlines or really any of the exports ever thought. And we're pulling at the airport from Louisville, from Birmingham, from Huntsville, from Memphis, from Knoxville. So we have I think their term is catchment. We have a huge catchment area that plays way bigger than our MSA. And that's probably been the biggest surprise to both us and the airlines.
So Butch, you're working that European flight for years and years, Chamber alongside of you.
Mm-hmm.
What actually caused it to happen the first time? And then, talk a little bit about the expansion of that flight too.
So I'll spare you too many of the details, but I was involved, you were involved in one of them, 5 trips to meet with British Air. And, think of it as Derrick Henry's stiff arm. I can't think of anything worse than receiving that 4 times. But I think persistence, and I'll give some credit kind of at the closing we took them to a Kings of Leon concert in Hyde Park. So they were the headliner in the London Summerfest. VIP'd them in the back, hang out backstage, took the lead guy on stage for the show, then took him to the after party. And so you had Lily Aldridge, who's a supermodel, international supermodel. Actually, at the time, her image was on a 60-foot image in Heathrow. You had Stella McCartney, Paul McCartney's daughter, John McEnroe. Chris Fowler was up there calling Wimbledon, and they were all at this after party. And the British Air folks all of a sudden stopped and went, wait a minute, this isn't a country band. And all these people are hanging out and love Nashville. And the light bulb went off. And the next morning, and I got to admit, and people listening would appreciate, we were out pretty late that night. And we had a 10 a.m. meeting at their headquarters, which is at Heathrow. So a long ride. And I feel like I crawled in. And the gentleman who really held the keys to the decision looked and said, we want to do this. I looked at him and went, well, we do too. So what do you need? Let's ink the deal. And he asked for a couple changes. We made them that day. And the rest was history. But persistence and overcoming the negative perceptions of our size, of the hee-haw country image, and the fact that people from the European side would travel. And I think that was the last thing that they didn't believe. And the flight was about 50-50 before it stopped during COVID. They never would have thought that Europeans would come here. They figured they would do pretty well out of Nashville. And that's what they were counting on, but they were shocked at the return, the origin out of the UK and out of Europe. So we're better than we think we are. We're better than the perception of people, but overcoming that is always the obstacle. You know that with the prospects you talk to.
Seemed like the number of flights accelerated really quickly. Seemed like, judging their risk at the beginning, they maybe judged it more risky than it actually was.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. They started with 5 days. We begged for 7, but we were one of the fastest new startups in the US to go from 5 to 7 days. And shortly after the 7, we jumped to a bigger plane. And just before COVID, we were informed they were going to that, I think it was the 767 they were coming with. And they were pretty proud. And we were pretty proud that in a very short amount of time, we had exceeded all expectations.
Kind of reminds me of when the convention center was going up. We were trying to talk that hotel to build extra floors on top, and I guess 2 or 3 years later, they're wishing they had built those additional floors.
Yeah, Bob from Omni made the wrong call.
Yeah.
And we tried to tell him. We absolutely tried.
So just a couple of quick stats. How many hotel rooms are there in Nashville? I mean, we've seen this explosion of hotels in downtown Nashville. Are they staying full, and are they, again, the international traveler? Do they find those accommodations to be what they expect when they get here?
Yeah, they find the accommodations they expect now. That wasn't the case 5, 10 years ago. There's about 37,000 rooms in Davidson County today, and there's about 4,000 under construction or planned that are definitely planned. So we'll go over 40,000 rooms for Davidson County, over 55,000 in the MSA. So that puts us in a pretty competitive category. The best thing that's happened out of it is the diversity of the brands, from the Dream to the New W to the Joseph to the Conrad, and even the Grand Hyatt. All of the new flags have filled voids on either boutique style or a flag we desperately needed, like a Four Seasons. So it's working. Answer your last question. July and August will have exceeded 2019 in terms of hotel demand. So it's still, and there's a little bit of a race. You can't use occupancy right now because there are so many more rooms, but in terms of demand, we're exceeding when we peaked back in July and August of 19.
So to what do you attribute the speed of the recovery? Because even, as we do our economic forecasting, we didn't expect the return of hospitality this quickly.
No, we did not either. So it's a great case where if you want to tell me how wrong I was, you could. But pent up leisure demand. People had government money and had been sick of staying home. And almost, I don't mind saying, almost to our detriment, they're coming in waves, and they forgot their manners to a large degree when they have decided to come back. But our convention business is also starting to pick back up, and that's the real bread and butter. That's the true sign of our recovery. So we need that.
Hey, Patrick, I'm not seeing any questions in the Q&A.
I see one now. Okay.
None yet, but I have a couple of questions in from our Facebook Live. We get those via Twitter. So let me, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, there is a question from Jim. It says, have incoming international travelers been traveling beyond Nashville to other cities, or is it mostly here and back? For the most part, they travel beyond. The good thing is they come for a longer period of time. So I'll mention two things. One, we have a partnership with Atlanta and New Orleans, and we call it Rhythms of the South. And we market ourselves together. Atlanta's our primary gateway. That's why they're our partner. New Orleans had the foot in the door of international before we did. So we like being their partner. And we were the new kid on the block that added some sizzle. That's been a great partnership. All three cities have benefited from visitation. The other piece of that is Memphis and Graceland, more I should say Graceland and then Memphis. There's still a huge following to go see where Elvis lived and what he wanted to do. And I don't understand how that's still a thing, but it is still a thing. So they do travel beyond, and they tend to stay a couple weeks while they're here. And if we can get 4 or 5 nights, we're really happy.
Which from a Facebook Live viewer, there are limits, COVID limits on international travel to the U.S. in place, but downtown seems to be packed with visitors. Do you know if you're still getting international tourists? It seems like we'll be over capacity when international travel does get back to normal.
If we're getting any, we're getting very little international right now. They have been sequestered, hunkered down at home. Even our Canadian friends, until just recently, have not been allowed to travel. So I don't think we'll be overrun, because I think the summer wave that we've seen, the onslaught, it has to wane a bit. Certainly conventions will keep that out. And the international flight coming back will shift the market a little bit. So I'm optimistic. Hopefully I'm not falsely optimistic that there will be capacity and we'll shift to a better spending, better behaving crowd.
And I think you might have touched on this a little bit, but what countries are most represented in the international visiting population when things are at the normal rate? And are there specific countries that are being marketed to?
First, Canada.
I think you said Australia, UK.
Yeah, Canada is always our #1 market. We do very little up there, but we're talking to the state about doing some things. UK would be #2, excuse me, then Germany. And then I don't know if it's by the numbers, but certainly by growth, Australia is a huge market for us. So we're working European mainland, and we're working the Australian market. And we've just started to look at South America a little bit.
Well, if you've been to Hyde Park, you might have taken a ride on the tube, and I'm sure have seen all the Jack Daniels posters up. So Nashville probably gets some credit from the Tennessee brand as well.
Without question. And we don't do anything anywhere internationally that we don't bring Jack Daniels with us, literally and figuratively. They're a partner, they're a brand, and they're always ready to help us with product. So if we do a reception for clients, there's a bottle of Jack sitting on the bar, and it's always a conversation. It's kind of funny. Elvis, Dolly, and Jack Daniels are the most recognizable brands internationally that I've ever seen. It's insane.
I was on a delegation to China, and in my gift bags that we had to present, I had a little Jack Daniels, a Johnny Cash CD, and a Goo Goo cluster, and I won best gift bag.
I bet you did.
Hey, Patrick, we got another Q&A. You mind if I throw this one in there?
Go ahead, Ralph.
All right. So here's a question from one of the viewers. Nashville's had success in creating awareness on a global scale. What's next? What do we need to do to build upon what we've accomplished so far? And Butch, let me just add to that. Do you feel that we've really penetrated that global awareness at this point?
I'd say we penetrated the awareness. Like, you can go anywhere now and you say Nashville, and the taxi driver or the police officer or just a random stranger, they'll light a smile and they'll usually say Music City. What we haven't done is convert that into dollars, into visits like we need to. So that goes back to our conversation about flights. We've got to open up the market to the world, literally. I know there's a lot of interest in Japan. That isn't going to happen until we have at least a second flight into the European mainland. So access comes after awareness. And I think we do have the awareness, but we don't have the access yet.
Patrick?
I got one more from Facebook Live. Can you comment on the connections that are made when international travelers connect in Nashville? Are we building any bridges? This comes off the topic in our program notes. You know, at the World Affairs Council and in some other organizations, we're all about helping Nashvillians know about the world. And now that the world is knowing about Nashville, do you get a sense that there's any enduring connections, or is it just one and done?
Right now, it's more one and done. I think there is interest that has been piqued. I could use this as probably a bad example, but there's a big promotion in the UK called No Shave November, where they raise money for charity. And it's about not shaving your mustache or your beard. And they wanted to expand it to the States, and they wanted to start in Nashville. So there's those kinds of things where they see the opportunity to take Nashville music and leverage it around the world, but we haven't found the right opportunity yet.
You know, during pre-COVID, I recall a couple of times on Predators game nights bumping into Swiss visitors who were here simply because of Roman Yossi. Can you talk a little bit about the attraction of international sports stars, both in our hockey team and our football team, the other football team?
I think first, the Preds and Nashville SC have been invaluable in terms of that international awareness, because obviously those are two sports that are bigger globally than they are in the US. We have FIFA coming to town in 2 weeks for a site visit. And to your point, the main person from FIFA out of Geneva is going to get a Roman Yossi jersey, part of his welcome packet. And it's about the connection between Nashville and Switzerland. It's not about hockey or the Preds, but trying to make that personal connection. They're aware. They are extremely aware of the players that live here. And then, especially when the Preds went deep into the playoffs, the bylines in media around the world at Nashville, and talked about the players that we have here from the European market. So it's invaluable. It's something we all don't think about, but it feeds the interest, it feeds the awareness, and it enhances our credibility without question.
Well, gentlemen, thanks for a great conversation about Nashville, global branding, and where we are in the international scene. We've been talking with Butch Spyridon, the president and CEO of the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation, and our guest host for Global Nashville has been Ralph Schulz. Ralph, Butch, any last comments?
Thanks for having me, Ralph.
I just want to say, look, our Convention and Visitors Corporation is world renowned for the work that they've done. Butch, when did you arrive at the CVC?
August of 91.
August of 91. I'd like our viewers to think back to August 91 as to what Nashville was as a hospitality center and what Nashville's brand on a global basis was. Butch, along with lots of partners in the CVC, along with lots of partners, have really created a jewel that is known around the world. So congratulations on your work. Thank you for your work. We love being partners with you, but I think we need to note how good you guys are.
Well, that's very kind. You don't do any of this stuff alone. And unknown to you all, but Ralph was one of the founding board members when we separated from the chamber about 15 years ago, 16, and it's been a good partnership even as we separated. So we're not successful without each other. I truly believe that.
Well, terrific. Gentlemen, thank you again for your time this evening. And let me just remind our visitors today with us tonight, and also in the recording, please take a look at the Tennessee World Affairs Council website, tnwac.org. We would appreciate you becoming members. That's how we pay the light bill. Or if you're not interested in membership and all of its world-class benefits, please consider making a donation at tnwac.org. And we look forward to the next edition with Global Nashville. Hopefully, Karl will be back in the seat, but Ralph, don't get too far away.
I hope Karl will be back too.
Admirable job.
Well done.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
all. Everybody have a good evening.